My family had their Florida retirement all mapped out, funded entirely by my earnings. But once I uncovered their scheme, I unleashed a shocking move that turned their lives upside down. I'm Ethan, 32, and I run a workout equipment distribution business. This isn't some fly-by-night dropshipping or MLM scam, it's the real deal. We supply heavy-duty, commercial-grade gear to serious gyms, CrossFit boxes, and professional training facilities. I built this company from the ground up 7 years ago. Picture me at 25, crammed into a tiny one-bedroom apartment, operating out of a garage barely big enough for a car. I actually miss those days, cruising in my old Ford Ranger, hitting every gym within a 100-mile radius to make connections. Initially, I just hauled the essentials, dumbbells, weight plates, resistance bands, whatever fit in that truck. The first 2 years were brutal. I survived on protein shakes and canned tuna, working from 4 a.m. until midnight most days. The constant rejections, no or we already have a supplier, would have crushed most people. But each no just fueled my determination. I'd go home, research better products, make more calls, send more emails. Sleep was a luxury for the weekend. My big break arrived when I landed an exclusive contract with a European company renowned for high-quality equipment. No one else in the region carried their products. Suddenly, all those gyms that had turned me down were calling me back. From there, the business exploded. Today, I manage 3 warehouses, employ 28 people, and we're the preferred supplier for half the major gyms in the tri-state area. But here's where my story takes a dark turn. As I poured my life into building this business, my family watched from the sidelines, like vultures circling. My father, Ron, was once a passionate boxing trainer who ran a successful gym and taught me everything about the fitness world. Yet the moment I turned 18 and was ready for college, he conveniently suffered a back injury. It's truly ironic how this disability never stopped him from golfing or fishing, but rendered him completely unable to work. My mother, Diane, was the quintessential enabler. She'd never held a job in her life, always armed with an excuse. Oh, I'm too old to start working now. She'd claim at 52, an age when many people launch entirely new careers. Then there's my sister, Katie. Where do I even begin with her? 2 years my junior. She lived a life utterly devoid of responsibility. At least in my parents' eyes. She's failed at more endeavors than most people even attempt. Not because she tried and stumbled, but because she never had to face consequences. Let me paint a clearer picture. While I was slogging through 16-hour days, sleeping on a futon in my office, and pouring every last cent back into my business, Katie was finding herself. She enrolled in beauty school, only to drop out after 3 months because it wasn't hard enough. Code 4, she had to show up on time and actually work. Next, she decided to become a personal trainer, a phase that lasted 2 weeks until she declared it too demanding. She's totaled 3 cars, maxed out countless credit cards, yet always landed on her feet, thanks to mom and dad cushioning her falls. Meanwhile, I was expected to be self-sufficient from day one. My parents' support when I started my business. That's nice, honey. Speaking of money, can you help with the electric bill this month? This month quickly morphed into every month. By 23, I was covering their mortgage. By 25, I was responsible for all their bills, electricity, car insurance, property taxes. Family helps family, Mum would declare, wielding the guilt card like a seasoned poker pro. You're doing so well, and we're so proud. It's not like you can't afford it, and like an absolute fool, I bought into it. Year after year, I rationalized my actions, believing I was doing the right thing, being a good son, hoping they'd eventually appreciate it. Looking back, the whole situation was deeply messed up. I was building something tangible while they actively perpetuated my sister's endless cycle of failures, and treated me like their personal ATM. What truly stung was their reaction to my achievements. I'd launch a new warehouse or secure a massive contract, and their acknowledgement would be minimal. But if Katie managed to hold a job for more than 2 weeks, it was as if she'd found a cure for cancer, family dinners, celebrations, the whole 9 yards. All while I was transforming a garage operation into a multi-million-dollar corporation, and their response was, "Oh, that's nice. By the way, the property taxes are due next week." Let me detail how their financial dependency escalated from occasional requests to me supporting for able-bodied adults who refused to work. It started at 23, right after I landed my first significant deal, supplying equipment to a chain of boutique gyms. Finally, real money was flowing in, not by a yacht money, but enough to cover my bills and have some left over. That's when the calls began. First Dad, "Hey son, a bit of a mortgage situation, just need a little help this month." Then, "Mum, the electric company is threatening to shut us off. And you know your father's back. His back injury was their perpetual trump card, justifying every demand." Meanwhile, my sister Katie was living her best life. Let me give you a few examples of the absurdities she pulled while I was bankrolling our parents. She decided she wanted to be a yoga instructor. Sounds good, right? Except she insisted Mum and Dad pay for her $3,000 certification. They, of course, didn't have the funds, so guess who got the call? But it gets better. She quit after 2 classes because the energy wasn't right. $3,000. Down the drain. Then there was her phase with crystals and essential oils where she decided to launch her own health business instead of just using them. She maxed out 3 credit cards, buying inventory. When that flopped, guess who had to help pay off the credit card debt? If you guessed me, congratulations, you're catching on. My personal favorite was her ecological fashion retail venture. She convinced Dad to co-sign a lease for a retail space. Remember, this is the same man too injured to work, yet perfectly capable of signing legal documents 3 months later. The business failed because she spent more time staging for non-existent clients than actually running it. The rent, however, still needed to be paid. And since Dad's name was on the lease, you guessed it, another call to good old Ethan, son, we really need your help. You know, we wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Through all this, I kept grinding. I expanded into a second warehouse, hired more staff, and made significant moves in the industry. But every milestone I reached was overshadowed by some family crisis. Landed a huge contract with a national gym chain. Sorry, we can't celebrate. Katie's car was repossessed, and she needs help buying a new one. Opened a new warehouse. Cool, but have you heard Katie's thoughts about returning to school? Spoiler, she didn't. Eventually, they stopped even asking for money. It just became the norm. Bills for rent, utilities, car payments, and insurance would simply appear in my email. Everything defaulted to my responsibility. And if I ever hesitated, oh boy, Mum would pull out the heavy artillery. "We're not asking for much, Ethan. You're doing so well, and family has to stick together." Dad would lean into the guilt. "No, I'd still be running the gym if I could. I taught you everything about this business." He taught me boxing. I taught myself how to run a profitable business. Katie's contribution to these conversations: "Must be nice to have so much money you can lord it over everyone. Some of us are trying to find our passion." This from someone who'd never held a job for more than 3 months in her life. The ultimate betrayal. They started planning their retirement on my dime. I discovered they were house hunting for condos in Florida. They actually had the nerve to send me listings, claiming it would be a great investment for the family. Yeah, because I was the one expected to pay for it. Want to know the scale of this financial drain? Over 5 years, I paid their mortgage, $2,400 monthly. Utilities averaged $400 a month. Car payments for 2 vehicles, $800 a month. Home and auto insurance, $350. Monthly property taxes, $6,000 annually. Random emergencies totaled around $25,000. Katie's numerous failed ventures, approximately $40,000. That's over $175,000. Let that sink in, and that figure doesn't even include smaller expenses like groceries, phone bills, and medical copay. What did I get in return? A pat on the back and another bill in my inbox. Some of you might be thinking, "Ethan, you were an idiot for letting this go on so long." Believe me, I know. Looking back, I can't believe I fell for it either. But when you're raised to believe family is everything and you must look after your own, it warps your perception. You start to think saying no makes you the bad guy. That's when Lauren, my wife, came into my life and slowly, gently, opened my eyes to the twisted reality of my family situation. I met Lauren at a powerlifting tournament my company sponsored. I wasn't even supposed to be there that day. My sales manager got sick, so I had to cover the booth. Best stroke of luck in my life. Lauren wasn't competing. She's a sports physical therapist who works with professional athletes. She was there with a client, an absolute beast of a man who shattered 3 state records that day. What caught my attention was how, unlike most people at these events, she was more interested in the technical specs of the equipment than the flashy branding. She approached my booth and asked about the knurling pattern on our competition bars. Not the usual, "How much does it cost? Or does it come in different colors?" She wanted to know about grip diameter variations and their impact on different lifting styles. I won't lie, a woman who truly understood the business was incredibly attractive. We started talking, and Next thing I knew, coffee after the event turned into dinner, which led to more dates. From the very beginning, it was different. This woman had her life together in a way that made me realize the sheer chaos I'd normalized in my own. Lauren grew up in a genuinely normal family. Her parents worked regular jobs, put her through college, and expected her to manage her own life afterward. They're proud of her accomplishments, but have never once asked her for money. Imagine that concept. Initially, I tried to compartmentalize my family issues from our relationship, but when you're shelling out thousands of dollars every month for other people's bills, it inevitably comes up. She learned about my family obligations about 3 months into our relationship. Katie had another emergency, forcing me to cancel our plans. She'd bounced a check at her child's daycare, and they wouldn't take the kid back until it was paid. Mom was tearfully explaining they couldn't watch him due to Dad's back. It's hilarious how that back injury only flares up when actual effort is required. So there I was, ready to transfer another $1,000 to clean up my sister's mess. Lauren just sat there, listening to me recount this as if it were perfectly normal. Then she said something that hit me like a ton of bricks. "Ethan, you know that's not your responsibility, right?" Simple words, but they resonated deeply because, in my family, I was responsible for everything. Business doing well, time to cover, more bills, got a bonus. Helped Katie with her latest failed scheme, finally saved enough for a new equipment line. Sorry, Mum and Dad need a new roof. Lauren started noticing patterns I'd been blind to for years, how my parents only called when they needed something, how every family dinner devolved into a presentation of bills and urgent demands, or how Katie could blow $500 on some MLM scam, but couldn't pay her own electric bill. Then we got married. It was a small ceremony, mostly for her family and my close friends. My family, they showed up late because Katie had a meltdown that morning about her ex not picking up the kids on time. Dad grumbled about the venue chairs hurting his back during the reception, yet after a few drinks, he was tearing up the dance floor without a hitch. The real eye-opener came with the birth of our son, Alex. Everything shifted the moment I held him for the first time. I looked at this tiny human and considered the example I was setting. Did I want him to grow up believing it was normal to be exploited by family? Did success mean being everyone else's piggy bank? Lauren's parents embraced Alex with genuine warmth from the start. Regular visits, always offering help, never expecting anything in return. My parents, meanwhile, were only interested when it was convenient. Mom would cancel plans last minute because Katie needed emotional support after another failed relationship. Dad would promise to visit, then never show up because his back was acting up. The only time they did watch Alex, they complained, "He's quite energetic. Ethan, not like Katie's kids who are so well behaved." Yeah, because her kids are glued to iPads all day, while my son actually plays and explores like a child should. I began to notice how differently they treated Alex compared to Katie's children. Katie's kids received expensive birthday gifts and constant attention. Alex got whatever was on clearance at Walmart, assuming they even remembered him. Last Christmas, they spent $300 on gifts for Katie's kids. Alex received a $20 Target gift card. Lauren saw all of this but never pressured me. She just asked thought-provoking questions. Why do you think they treat Alex differently? Or how would you feel if Alex grew up and was treated the same way you are now? This brings us to the breaking point. It was a Wednesday morning, and I was in my office, preparing for the biggest meeting of my career. Dick's Sporting Goods was interested in a national distribution agreement, an 8-figure contract. This was game-changing. I'd been working on this deal for months, meticulously preparing data and samples. My suit was pressed, my presentation flawless, and I felt utterly confident. Then my phone rang. It was Lauren. My wife never calls during work hours unless it's an emergency. She works with a pro baseball player recovering from Tommy John surgery, and his rehab was at a critical juncture. His agent needed her in Chicago ASAP. A private flight was already booked. This was a professional opportunity she couldn't pass up. No big deal, right? We're successful adults. We can handle scheduling hiccups. Except our nanny had called in sick that morning, and a stomach bug was going around the daycare. Alex was with Lauren at her workplace, playing in the kids section she'd set up for clients who brought their children. Like I said, my wife thinks of everything. We just needed someone to watch Alex for one night. Who was the first person I called? My mum. It seemed like the obvious choice. Both my parents are voluntarily unemployed, live 15 minutes away, and constantly talk about how much they miss their grandson. Plus, I'd been paying all their bills for the past 5 years. The conversation went like this. Me, hey, Mum, I need a favor. Lauren has a client emergency, and I have this huge meeting. Can you and Dad watch Alex tonight? Mum laughed, a genuine dismissive laugh. Oh, Ethan, sweetie, we're not babysitters. We've already raised our kids. It's not our responsibility to take care of yours. I sat in my office, still in my $2,000 suit, the first one I ever bought, feeling like I needed to look the part for this meeting, just staring at my phone. 5 years of paying their mortgage, electricity, car payments, unexpected expenses, 5 years of being their personal bank, and this is what I got. But something felt off. You know that gut feeling when something doesn't add up? Maybe it was all those years of analyzing inventory data, but something didn't feel right. I told my assistant to reschedule the Dick's meeting. She thought I was crazy. This was enormous, but here's a business lesson I've learned. Trust your intuition. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I got into my truck and drove straight to their house. No call ahead, no text, just drove. As their driveway came into view, guess what? I saw Katie's beat-up Honda Civic parked there on a Wednesday afternoon, when she was supposed to be at work. Let me tell you about their house. It's a spacious 4-bedroom in a desirable neighborhood. Why 4 bedrooms for just 2 people? Because I was paying for it. That's why they insisted it was for family visits. Funny, because the only family who ever stayed there was Katie, whenever she was between residences. I walked up to the door, didn't even knock. Why should I? I paid the mortgage, and what did I find in the living room? My parents on the floor, playing with Katie's kids. Katie herself was sprawled on their $2,000 couch, which I also paid for, scrolling through her phone. Mum and Dad were down there with building blocks, looking like the perfect grandparents. Ethan, Mum sprang up as if she'd seen a ghost. What are you doing here? I stood there in my suit, taking in the scene, and something inside me snapped, not in a screaming rage, but with a strange, terrifying calm. Funny, I said, my voice low. I thought you weren't babysitters. Katie rolled her eyes, barely glancing up from her phone. Ethan, some of us do need support sometimes. Not everyone can be as perfect as you. That's when Mom started making excuses. This is different, honey. Katie has a migraine. She just needs to rest. A migraine, I repeated, my voice still eerily. Quiet, she has a migraine, so you drop everything and watch her kids. But when I've been paying your expenses for years and need help for one night due to an emergency, suddenly you're not babysitters. Dad, who had been silent, began rubbing his temples. Son, you're making too big a deal out of this. Your sister needs help, and I don't. My voice cracked slightly. I have the biggest meeting of my career. Lauren has a client emergency. We need one night of help with your grandson, but I guess that's too much to ask from the people whose entire lives I've been financing for the past 5 years. Katie finally looked up from her phone, that smug little grin plastered on her face. Must be nice to have so much money that you can hold it over everyone's heads. Some of us actually struggle, you know. That's when I finally lost it. Not with a shout, but with a profound clarity. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and pulled up the numbers. Let's talk about struggle, Katie. Let's talk about the $175,000 I've given Mum and Dad over the past 5 years. Let's talk about your loans that were never repaid. Let's talk about how you haven't held a job for more than 3 months since high school, yet somehow always have money for new clothes and hair appointments. The room fell silent. The $175,000 figure hung in the air like a foul odor. Katie, for the first time in her life, had no witty retort, but my mother, oh, she quickly shifted tactics. It was like watching a master manipulator in action. First step, guilt. Ethan, honey, you're making us sound like terrible parents. After everything we've done for you, I cut her off right there. What exactly have you done for me, Mum? Because from where I'm standing, I've been carrying this entire family since I was 23. So please, enlighten me. What have you done besides take my money and treat me like an ATM? Dad tried to intervene with his peacemaker routine. Now, son, you know that's not fair. I taught you everything you know about this business. That's when I started laughing. A genuine, bitter laugh. You taught me about boxing, Dad. I taught myself everything about running a business. While you were nursing your convenient back injury, I was working 16-hour days, sleeping in my warehouse, building something real. The only thing you taught me was how to spot nonsense. And right now, I'm seeing it clearly. Katie finally got up from the couch, attempting to conjure tears. You're such a jerk, Ethan. Just because you got lucky with your business doesn't mean you're better than everyone else. Some of us have real problems. Real problems. I walked to the window and pointed at her car, that Honda Civic. I paid for it when you totaled your last car. Those designer shoes you're wearing, probably bought with the loan you got from Mum and Dad last month, which really means my money. Your kid's private school tuition, yeah, that's coming from the money I give them, too. So please, tell me more about your real problems. Mum started crying then, not her usual fake tears, but genuine, angry sobs. How dare you throw this in our faces? We're family. Family helps each other, I shot back. Funny how that only goes one way. Where was the family help when I was starting my business? Where was the family's help when I needed a co-signer for my first warehouse lease? Where's the family help right now when I need one night of childcare for your grandson? That's when Katie dropped the ultimate bombshell, making everything crystal clear. Well, maybe if you hadn't moved Alex's daycare to that expensive place across town, he could go to the same one as my kids. Then we could help each other out. I slowly turned to her. The expensive place across town? You mean the one that actually has qualified teachers and doesn't park kids in front of iPads all day? The one that costs exactly what I used to spend on your monthly emergencies? That's the one you're talking about. I then turned to my parents. And you too. Let's talk about that back injury, Dad. Funny how it only acts up when there's work to be done. But you can play golf every Wednesday with your buddies. Or, Mum, how you're too old to work, but somehow managed to go on shopping trips with Katie 3 times a week. My father actually had the audacity to look offended. My injury is real. Ethan, you know that, is it? I retorted. Because I've got a friend who's a sports physical therapist, you know, my wife, and she says it's pretty miraculous how your injury only seems to affect you when it's convenient. The room fell into a heavy silence after that, the kind of stillness where you can almost hear everyone calculating their next move. Katie's children were in the other room, oblivious, probably glued to tablets I likely paid for. That's when my mother tried one last time. Ethan, sweetheart, I think you're overreacting. We can talk about this like adults. Maybe if you're feeling overwhelmed with the bills, we can work something out. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of how they'd exploited me. Just another attempt to negotiate terms that would allow them to continue taking advantage. You know what? I said. Keep the money, keep the house, keep pretending you're the perfect parents to Katie while treating my son like a second-class grandchild. I'm done. Katie scoffed. Yeah, right. You always say that, but you'll cave. You always do. I looked her dead in the eyes. Not this time, sis. Want to know why? Because I finally see you all clearly. Mom and Dad aren't unable to work. They're unwilling. You're not struggling, you're lazy. And I'm not helping the family. I'm enabling. Parasites. I wish I could bottle the look on their faces. It was as if they suddenly realized their gravy train had pulled into the station for good. I left that house feeling lighter than I had in years, but this wasn't the end. Oh no, this was just the beginning of their worst nightmare, facing real consequences for their actions. Sleep was elusive that night. Lauren arrived home late from Chicago to find me in my home office, sifting through years of financial records. One look at my face, and she knew something was profoundly wrong. When I told her what had transpired, she simply nodded and asked, "So, what's the plan?" That's my wife. No drama, just straight to solutions. By 3 a.m., we had everything meticulously mapped out with spreadsheets and paperwork. The next morning, I went nuclear. First stop, my accountant's office. When I showed him the sheer volume of money I'd funneled to my family over the years, his jaw nearly hit the floor. "Ethan," he muttered, staring at the figures. "This is more than some people's entire retirement savings." "No kidding," I replied. He helped me document every single transaction, every transfer, every bill payment, and every loan. Next, my lawyer. Remember that Dick's Sporting Goods meeting I rescheduled? My lawyer's office was in the same building. The universe, it seems, has a dark sense of humor. I finalized the business agreement that morning, a massive success, then spent the afternoon legally fortifying myself for what I knew was coming. Then came the satisfying part. I started cutting them off, one by one. Mortgage on autopay gone, utility bills cancelled, car insurance, bye-bye credit card payments, no longer my concern, property tax account closed, cell phone family plan. I hope they enjoy prepaid. Here's the thing about severing ties, you have to do it all at once. It's like ripping off a band-aid. You can't do it half-heartedly. They'll find ways to guilt you back in. So, I went all in. I sent them a single text. "You're on your own now. Figure it out." Then, I blocked their numbers. All of them. Mum, Dad, and even Katie's landline. Yes, I was paying for that too. The meltdown was epic. Within hours they'd blown up every available channel. My work phone, 47 missed calls. My email inbox, it looked like a spam folder. Lauren's phone, they tried that too. And even the office landline, my underpaid receptionist, deserves a raise. Mom's initial email was exactly what you'd expect. How could you do this to your own family? We're going to lose everything. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. Katie's kids need stability. Noticeably absent any mention of Alex, or how they'd treated me, or any admission of their own behavior. Just pure panic over losing their meal ticket. Dad attempted the businessman approach. Son, let's handle this like rational adults. We can work something out, maybe set up a payment plan. A payment plan? They treated me like a credit card company they could negotiate with. But Katie went full nuclear. She started calling my staff, trying to get to me. She even showed up at one of my warehouses, causing such a scene that my loading dock manager, a veteran Marine, had to escort her out. She was screaming about how I was destroying the family, how her children would suffer, and how I was just envious of her free spirit. The best part, my lawyer had already drafted a cease and desist letter, one terrifying letter alleging harassment. Later, Katie suddenly remembered how to behave like an adult. Then came the financial reality check. It turns out that after 5 years of living off someone else's income, you tend to forget how bills work. Within 2 weeks, their comfortable little world began to crumble. Dad's back problem miraculously improved, allowing him to start looking for a job. Mom discovered that employment actually exists. Katie had to cancel her wellness retreat and spa weekends. Their country club membership lapsed. The lawn service stopped coming. Their favorite esthetician stopped seeing them. My security team, yes, I have one now. A successful business demands precautions, reported that Mum and Dad were seen entering, wait for it, a career fair. The horror. But here's the real kicker. Remember that Florida condo they were eyeing? The one they expected me to buy for their retirement? They'd already paid a refundable deposit using my money. When they had to back out, the realtor contacted me to refund the deposit. Apparently, they'd used my corporate email for the correspondence. That money went directly into Alex's education fund, and the cherry on top. Katie's ex-husband reached out to me. She'd been telling him I was contributing to child support so he wouldn't have to pay as much. Yeah, that information went straight to his lawyer. Was it harsh? Maybe. But you know what's harsher? Using your own child as an ATM while treating his son like a second-class citizen, exploiting someone's success without contributing anything, playing favorites with grandchildren based on which parent is easier to manipulate. And this was just the beginning. 3 months after I cut them off, the full weight of their situation settled in. Their cozy little world was utterly shattered. Let me tell you how each of them dealt with the consequences of their actions. First up, my father. Remember that mysterious back injury that made work impossible? It's fascinating how quickly it healed once the money dried up. A friend who owns a local gym told me Dad came in looking for a job. Mom's transformation was even more dramatic. After 15 years of being too old to work, she realized she was perfectly capable of holding a job. She's now a hostess at Applebee's. Yes, the same Applebee's where she used to complain about the terrible service and leave a 5% tip. Karma, I'll admit, has a sense of humor. But Katie, oh man, Katie's story is my favorite. Remember how she was constantly reinventing herself and launching new businesses that I ended up funding? Reality hit her like a freight train. Her ex-husband's lawyer used the information about her lying about child support to reopen their custody agreement. Turns out, courts don't look kindly on parents who misrepresent their financial arrangements. She had to move back in with Mum and Dad because she could no longer afford her apartment. 3 adults, 2 kids, all packed into the house I used to pay for. The same house that's now in pre-foreclosure because, surprise, they can't afford it on their own. But here's where things get really good. Last week, they tried one final guilt trip. Mum posted an epic sob story on Facebook about how her successful son abandoned his poor family. Let me share some memorable quotes. It breaks my heart to see how money can change a person. My own son, whom I raised and nurtured, has turned his back on us in our time of need. We're struggling to put food on the table while he lives in luxury. What kind of person abandons their own parents, their own sister? The comments were exactly what you'd expect from people who didn't know the real story. That's terrible. How could he do that to his own mother? And my personal favorite, family is everything. So you know what I did? I dropped the receipts. All of them. I made a single post, completely professional, just stating the facts. In the interest of transparency, Here are the financial records of my support over the past 5 years. Then, I listed everything, all mortgage payments, every utility bill, every loan to Katie, the total sum that went into her failing businesses, the cost of their cars, everything. Then I added the screenshots, Mum's text giggling about not babysitting, Alex, emails about the Florida condo they expected me to buy, Katie's messages begging for money for her many scams, Dad's golf club membership renewal strangely prioritized over his grandson. The fallout was staggering. Family members I hadn't heard from in years started contacting me, not to guilt me, but to apologize for believing their version of the story. Mum and Dad had painted a picture of me as a caring, supportive son eager to help the family. Nobody realized they were essentially extorting me. Katie's ex-husband's attorney hit the jackpot with all this evidence. She's now working 2 legitimate jobs, not wellness coaching, or whatever her previous scheme was to pay her child support. She spends her days at Target and her nights serving tables. She apparently had a meltdown when they made her wear the red polo shirt instead of letting her express her individual style. Last weekend, I drove by their house on my way to Alex's Little League game. The grass is overgrown because they can no longer afford landscaping services. Dad's cherished Mercedes was repossessed, and now he drives a beat-up Corolla. Mum's luxury bag collection has inexplicably vanished from her Facebook photos. But, you know what? I don't feel bad, not even a little bit, because while they're suffering the consequences of their actions, I'm building something real. The money I used to waste on them, it's going into Alex's college fund. I'm focusing on expanding my business into areas that truly matter. Lauren says I should be proud of finally standing up for myself. But honestly, I just feel free. It feels like I can finally breathe. Alex will never grow up believing it's normal to be exploited by relatives. He'll never assume his worth is determined by how much money he gives out. And my parents and sister, they're finally learning what the rest of us have always known. The real world doesn't care about your excuses. It cares about what you do. They made their decisions, now they can live with them.